You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting The Options Insider Radio Network. And joining me on the program today is a newcomer to the show and indeed to the network. He is Oliver Albers, the Senior Vice President and the Head of Strategic Partnerships with Nasdaq's Global Information Services. Oliver, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate your time today.
And Oliver, as we want to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial space and what it is you do as the SVP and Head of Strategic Partnerships over there for Nasdaq's Global Information Services.
Certainly. So, as you mentioned, I'm Head of Strategic Partnerships within Global Information Services. So we have 3 pillars of our business within information services at Nasdaq. We've got kind of our core exchange data business that I'm responsible for in terms of just distributing and the market data from the various markets that we operate and making sure the markets are transparent and accessible to everyone. The second pillar is our index business, where we obviously create innovative indexes for asset management firms to benchmark to or to create structured products, ETFs, et cetera, that track those indexes. And then the last one is our investment data and analytics, which is really one of our more recent forays where we're expanding the solutions that we offer to asset management firms in terms of giving them different insights to the market. A lot of that is around alternative data. So, and I've been with NASDAQ for 19 plus years, so I'm kind of an oddity in today's workforce. So I started at NASDAQ in June of 2000 as an intern, actually, and then worked my way up throughout our historical data department and economic research department, and then have been in the data business since. So, I'm kind of a data geek at heart, and so we'll approach all things more from a data and information perspective rather than a trading perspective, which I'm sure is kind of a lot of the content that you historically have on here.
You're an old school data junkie. I like it. Well, we don't get a chance here, as you mentioned very often on the network, to talk to the data guys because you're usually knee deep in the weeds putting together new data feeds and everything like that. But you do have something that came across our radar, which we thought would be pretty interesting for our core options audience. And it kind of runs the gamut from the institutional guys all the way down to some of the other audience out there as well. So, Oliver, why don't you break it down? What are you guys doing these days in the smart options data feed side of the fence, sir?
Yeah, so Smart Options is a really cool product that we recently launched, and it was actually based on feedback that we've had from our clients that, the options ecosystem is especially challenging, especially as it compares to equities, just because of the sheer size and quantity of the data that's going out on the Opera feed, which is the consolidated source for options data in the U.S., where, there are 16 market centers all sending, their best bid, best offer and trade information to that service to then be aggregated and distributed to the masses. And when you factor in the fact that there are, 1 million traded instruments covered on that product, there's 50 billion plus messages per day, and it's expected to grow at 10% annually. It's just the feed becomes a real bear. And so what we did is we created a Smart Options feed, which basically filters out all the individual best bid, best offer information from the various market centers and just offers the national best bid, best offer for those 1 million tradable instruments. And so what it does is it provides a much easier to consume feed for our clients. And so it can save clients 80% of the bandwidth from what was required from the standard Opera feed. And so with that, comes obviously a lot of savings in terms of their network expense, but also a lot of savings in terms of hardware and software expenses as well. And so we're really excited about this, and that we think that this feed opens up the options market to a different clientele that couldn't necessarily didn't have the wherewithal to process all this information. So we're pretty excited about the ability to offer our clients cost savings and open up options to kind of new different types of clients.
You're totally right, and I've often referred to it here on this network many times, only half jokingly, as the Opera fire hose. It's this massive fire hose, just stream of data that hits new entrants to this market in the face. And oftentimes they're not prepared for that full stream of data. As you mentioned, all the different venues, all the different markets, calls and puts. It's overwhelming, particularly if you're coming to this space in, let's say, the Delta One world or somewhere else where the data requirements, the data needs are much more manageable. Now you get this full Opera fire hose hitting you in the face, and it could be a rude awakening for a lot of new players in the space. So it sounds like here, Oliver, your goal is to streamline that fire hose. Maybe not make it a trickle, but make it so that it's not knocking you off your chair at the end of the day. Is that the goal here, Oliver?
Yeah, it's basically a drinking fountain. So you can actually quench your thirst with this and swallow the water rather than just getting blasted with it. And just in general, we want to, Nasdaq, our mission in information services is just to make it as easy as possible for people to consume data. So, we're also trying to make it as easily accessible as possible via our data centers in Carteret, Secaucus, Chicago. We work with a lot of different extranet providers. We're working with market data redistributors to try to just give everyone easy access to this easier to consume feed.
It's funny, as you're saying this, it just makes so much sense. It's so obvious. The NBBO, which is, of course, listeners, the national best bid and offer, is pretty much what you're seeing out there when you're looking at quotes for particular markets. It's the best bid on every exchange, the best offer on every exchange. It's where the lion's share of your trading activity is probably going to go up, unless you're going to do some size. Then you're probably going to trade through the NBBO a little bit. But for a lot of the participants out there, the NBBO is where you're going to hang your hat from the options perspective, maybe trading somewhere in between that. So that's the relevant data for a lot of people. So it just strikes me, Oliver, this is so simple and so obvious. Why hasn't anyone done this before?
Yeah, well, and I think Nasdaq also brings, we are a technology company at our core, and we're really good at just aggregating disparate data sets, translating those data sets, and, efficiently redistributing them. And so, leveraging that technology, I think, we can come at this and just provide, a really high-value service that helps lower costs for the industry. Obviously, the financial services industry is going through a tremendous change, a lot of cost pressures, and, Nasdaq is constantly kind of sitting back with our clients and figuring out ways where we can solve some of these problems upstream and pass on savings to our clients, given some of the difficult market conditions we're faced with.
You mentioned this is for new players, new participants in the space as well, not just your traditional prop shops and institutional players who pretty much all have to use that full Opera fire hose. They can't really get around it for what they're doing, streaming quotes in microseconds in various markets. But we've started to hear, and it sounds like you guys have as well, we started to hear these types of complaints from a lot of new participants, from some of the asset managers and RIAs coming to the space who are trying to tackle options for the first time, and they're seeing this just massive explosion of data they have to come to grips with. And also for even some of the bleeding edge of the retail who are trying to be a little bit more active and see what's going on, and they encounter that full fire hose. It's pretty daunting for them as well. So it sounds like, Oliver, that's who you're aiming this product at, is those kind of latter participants. Is that the case?
You're absolutely right, especially on the retail side. Some of the clients we have on the product already are retail related. In the end, retail customers, they're concerned with what the exchange top of book is, what the number of contracts are and the best price. That's really what's important. The firm's router then needs to deal with, the individual exchanges and how to route that order flow effectively to give, best execution. And so it's really just a key service offering to retail where, the more retail involvement we can have in the options markets, the better. So, we'll reduce the barrier to entry here. We also obviously actively engage with our retail brokerage partners on education initiatives as well to make sure that their customer base knows how to properly leverage options, in a safe, effective way for their portfolios and their trading strategies.
Well, let's focus on that retail core for a second there, because a lot of the retail, obviously, they engage with market data through their brokerage provider. That's where they get their market data. So is this going to be kind of like something they're going to see pass through on the brokerage platform, and they're going to see this coming through as this more streamlined type of feed? Or is this something you expect, like I said, that bleeding edge, that super savvy end of the retail spectrum, which we certainly have lurking around out there in our audience as well? Do you expect them to actually come and maybe proactively start signing up for this service with you guys?
No, I think a lot of it will go through the retail brokers that we work with. The likes of the big names out there, Interactive Brokers, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity. I can go on and on about them. But in the end, they're the firms that have to deal with the amount of bandwidth required, the software, the hardware required to process the Opera feed. This gives them a lower cost alternative. All the Opera fees, still apply, and in the sense it's still Opera data. We're just providing it to that brokerage firm in a much more cost-effective way that then they pass through to their clients. And so it's really like infrastructure savings for those upstream firms. We don't anticipate having a lot of individual traders coming directly to us for this, because even this feed is still can be a lot to consume for an individual.
Yeah, it's going to be behind the scenes for a lot of the people out there. They may encounter it and not even know that they're encountering this. But of course, we're in this new era, Oliver, where we're talking about zero commissions and fees are being slashed across the board. So it is important for a lot of these brokerage firms as well to start slashing fees behind the scenes and market data, connectivity, bandwidth. These are clearly costs for them. So if you can come to them and say, I'm offering you some sort of approximate 80% reduction in cost, I'm going to assume, Oliver, that they'll be receptive to that idea.
Absolutely. And, obviously from day one when, commissions have gone to zero or, we're on their way to zero in the past, we've been sitting down with our retail partners and just kind of understanding where we can help lower their cost. And, that can be services like the Smart Options product. It can be, better leveraging cloud-based services, and an assortment of other things. So, we're actively engaged, just trying to figure out how we can improve their operations and make them more efficient in these markets. In the end retail user across the board, whether or not we're talking about equities or options, I think has never had it better, and we only seem to continue to improve that. And so, it's up to I think the industry to work together upstream to make sure that we're adapting in conjunction with that.
That's true. Market data side is usually, we hear it a lot from our different participants on the industry side in particular. It's usually usually in some sort of negative connotation where they complain to us, market data is too expensive and this and that. But like I mentioned, it's starting to bleed over into other elements of the space as well. Some of the active RIAs and asset managers, even some of the bleeding end of the retail are starting to encounter that and seeing the impact that has. Also, a lot of the new market data type startups out there are starting to complain about the costs of connecting to these various areas just to do their modeling or analytics or whatever the case may be of what they're trying to do. So this is a great start, I think, Oliver, but you kind of mentioned, you're right, this is an ongoing process, an ongoing evolution as we're trying to come to grips with all the data, particularly on the options side, that is such a bear for a lot of people to handle. So I'm curious, you guys are obviously working on a lot of cool things over there, Oliver. This is obviously a big one. Can you give us any other peeks behind the kimono, any other interesting initiatives maybe you guys are working on to keep this process going, to keep reducing the impact of bandwidth and market data for a lot of participants out there?
Yeah, so we've done a few different things. We've established different connectivity points. For example, we established one last year in Hong Kong to reduce the cost of firms in Asia so they can connect to a central point in their local geographic region rather than having to connect to the U.S. or an expensive network provider and ship the data all the way back to their home geography. We provided a localized POP for them to reduce their telecommunications infrastructure. That's one area where we've been working on. We also, as I mentioned earlier, are actively working on alternative data products, which are with the growth in new technology. There are a lot of different data points that are now quantifiable that weren't quantifiable before. And so whether or not it's geographic location information, it's sentiment, social media sentiment, spending data. There's just a whole assortment of different ways of viewing the market that investors can use now that they couldn't have used 5 years ago. And so we are actively engaged on the alternative data space and really investing a lot there. We purchased a company called Quandl in December of last year, and we're really excited about bringing more unique insights to not just professional investors, in the traditional asset management side or hedge fund side, but really working with the retail side as well to make those alternative data points available to give, in different investing ideas, different ways of viewing the market. So that's one area where we're really focused and we think is very exciting, is only going to grow in the future.
No, the Quandl, the acquisition definitely is one that was on our radar. A lot of our listeners have asked us about that. It's been, I think, close to a year since you guys acquired that now. We've had a lot of audience writing into us saying, what's going on? Why did Nasdaq buy Quandl? So I'm glad we can get you on to discuss that a little bit. I know for a lot of our audience, they were obviously concerned when Nasdaq bought Quandl. One part of the Quandl was, of course, that whole movement to democratize data, what we're talking about here, making market data more readily available, maybe lower cost for a lot of participants. They saw Quandl as a step in that direction. They were obviously concerned when Nasdaq bought them that something would change, maybe the cost would go up or the data would be harder to acquire. So, Oliver, since I have you on here, I don't get a chance to chat with the market data side too often. I'm curious, maybe you can allay those concerns.
Yeah. I think the purpose of that acquisition was twofold. As I mentioned, the alternative data side and just the fact that they've had a history creating really value-added alternative data products that provide value to the investing public. That was point number one. But point number two, I think, which is equally important, is they have just an awesome API and of just a great ecosystem for individual users. And so we plan to continue to kind of have that ecosystem evolve and push more and more of our content through there. And so we make more of our content, as I was saying earlier, easily accessible. So leveraging that API to get some of our real-time equities or index or options data out there, or any of the different data assets we have, offering that API just opens us up to a whole different client demographic and makes it easier for people to consume it in the way they want to consume it. And so we're also really excited about that. And Quandl's original premise was around making data delightful. And they continue to make data delightful. And, I think with Nasdaq, we'll just kind of increase the amount of delightful data on there exponentially, over the years as we continue to work through that integration and that offering.
Well, certainly a lot of people here in Chicago are delighted with Quandl. I know a lot of people around here who are selling models and data through Quandl as we speak. So it's certainly revolutionized how they engage with the marketplace. By the way, Oliver, it's just you and I talking here. So if you want to maybe leave any hints for any other pending acquisitions, now is the time, sir. Have at it.
Yeah, I think I might get in trouble for that. But, I will say that within information services, I think this is really a key growth area at Nasdaq. And so, we're just constantly looking at, ways we can grow organically or through M&A on, how we can help better service our customers. Again, financial services are undergoing fundamental change right now. And I think Nasdaq in particular is uniquely positioned to help solve a lot of these problems for, not only the sell side, but the buy side, even media companies. As we go through these changes, I think Nasdaq's going to be a positive for change.
Well, this is certainly a step in the right direction. And Oliver, if folks want to learn more about your smart options data feed, how they can apply it, how they can get access to it, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, so we have information on Nasdaq Trader and Nasdaq.com. If you just search smart options on there, or certainly a Google search, we'll bring up any additional information around it, provided our marketing people are doing their job with, search engine optimization. And we also obviously have contact information on there. So my team's constantly available just with any questions around smart options or really any of our other products. We pride ourselves on service, so happy to have discussions on, what we can do to help.
Well, Oliver, I'm glad we can get you on, and you're welcome to come back on anytime you slash bandwidth requirements by 80%, sir. You're welcome to come back on the program. How's that sound?
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate you taking the time and having me on. It's been great to meet you.
Oh, well, this has been fun, and we'll look forward to seeing how this smart options data feed, how it unfolds in the marketplace in the coming months. And you guys can stay tuned for more episodes of Options Insider Radio coming your way very soon.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.